Says, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready to rumble?
See that? I disconnected silently for a moment. Didn't let me know. Ah, yeah, there you are. Yeah, that's good costume. I'm still a pretty good ways away from 511, but we thought for a long time about doing some modules, doing a series of modules on shows or shows on modules. We've talked about T-Track a bunch. A lot of people are interested in that. Harold Martin from Australia does some T-Track stuff. That's a real interesting standard. I've always been interested since I first heard about it in Fremo. I used to have modules years ago when they were not the operational style. They were basically racetrack modules. 20 years ago or something. I didn't love the racetrack system. I do like Fremo pretty good. Fremo, whatever.
Hey, Michael, can you hear me now? Do the phone commercial. Well, Curtis, we don't talk about that. Andy's always on the fuzzy side anyway.
Fuzzy.
Looks more smoky than anything on my end.
Yeah, the light's a bit odd. Let's see.
Well, how you doing, John? 2618. He just popped in. Yeah, for some reason or other, I'm having to go through and redo all the settings tonight. I even had to sign in to whereby. I usually stay signed in all the time. But I had to go adjust the stream software. It wasn't picking up the microphone. Let's see if I can turn it up just a little bit too, without blowing everybody's ears out. That all looked pretty good.
That might be a bit sharper. It's the better camera.
Yeah. Don't look like you're in a smoky room.
Yeah, it's a little better. Yeah, it's still like.
All right, happy Halloween to you too. You're not out grabbing candy off the little kids. Uh-oh. OBS just went red on me.
See that? It came back intermittently.
Okay. Looks like it's going all right now. It's still red. Now it went orange. Now it's green. Now it's blue, purple, yellow. Back to red. Oh well.
If you're not gonna be working on John's layout for a bit, you need to start working on a little switching layout or something we've talked about for a while. For you, actually, I saved the track plan. I have to try to find that. I saved a little track plan some time ago. I found that I thought I've done this numerous times, of course. When I found something that I thought would be an all right fit for your use case. I found a relatively interesting kind of micro layout track plan that was, most of those are like stupid simple, like Eagle Nooks and the like, but I found one that was rather interesting. Simple, small, interesting.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I gotta go to storage and dig out my radio control panel. I took my cab over to John's. This way I can use my cab and not have to wait on him to tell me if the train is stopped or not. Well, my engine runs around the layout just fine. I have a little problem with his. But I think that might be in the mobile decoder.
Okay, what's it doing?
Hesitating. It's usually the same spot in the track. Several places around the track.
Yeah, that would seem like it's either electrical contact, dirt, or electrical contact on track if it happens at the same spot.
Yeah, because yeah, but my engine runs around it just fine. Where he has to hesitate, mine never hiccups. It just keeps right on going. That's the reason I'm kind of thinking it might be more the decoder card.
That might be true too, of course. It's not uncommon to see steam locomotives are finicky. It's not uncommon to see, especially like the older steam locomotives, they would have like the pickup on the locomotive on one side and the tender on the opposing rail. Those were awful to lose, to be more sensitive to electrical contact. But they've got much better as years have went on about electrical connectivity. But we're still depending on, that's what I love about battery power so much, is that the weakest link we have in motor railroading is that rail to wheel electrical interface. That's not a good solution.
Well,
current keepers or capacitors, keep alive, whatever, they help, but
both of those engines are diesels. Getting the
Yeah.
feedback there. Tim, I think it's you. Let me mute him and see. Yeah. Well, I muted him. He quit. He must have his speakers back around at the microphone.
No, they're on the opposite side of the room.
Uh, I don't hear it now, so. Yeah, I figured I'd yeah, give John something to think about. Next time I'll plug that panel in and then just come out and walk around this layout with my cab not plugged in and let him figure out how it's working.
Alright.
It's got a UT4, but I got to figure out how to get it to work. I tried to get it to pick up my loco, but it wouldn't do it before I even plugged my other cab in.
What kind of logo does he have that's having problems, Johnny?
I have no idea. All I can tell you is it's going to be cheap.
Yeah.
It may be, if it's a diesel, it may be like the steam locomotives where it has one pickup on one truck and the other pickup on the other truck.
No, I'm thinking more like it may have a Lentz decoder in it, like I got a diesel over that I'm running on his layout, that's a Bachman, and it had the Lentz in it.
Yeah.
We had a kid in here, Donnie Dixon, and they said, yeah, they'll run for about a year and then it's going to quit. So go get you a Digitrax and this number here and put in it. Yep, right at a year, they quit running. So we got that Digitrax stuck in it, and the thing run better than it did when I bought it brand new.
Decoder makes an unbelievable amount of difference. There's a lot of the European modelers use the lens decoders with a great degree of success.
But Lens also had a real cheap decoder that Bachman was buying from them.
Yeah.
Very, very low end. I'm surprised Lens would even put their name on it.
Well, I think I'm still sold on the ESUs.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, yeah, I'll still put Digitrax in them every now and then, but it'll eventually get an ESU put in it.
Well, my argument to people about it is if you need to go economical, you can buy a ESU, a motion only or locomotion only decoder called a Loc Pilot. That's $25, something like that. $24, $23, $25. So that's like $5-6 more than a Digitrax. Maybe it's $10 more, but it's $25 or less. And even though ESU has become quite synonymous with how good their sound is and how good their control with regard to sound is, and the synchronization and some of that stuff, the actual motor control and back EMF and stuff is far superior on an ESU to anything, in my personal opinion.
I mean, I've not really tried a whole lot of other decoders. Mainly running Digitrax, and I went ahead and went up to the ESUs, and for the price, yeah, it was, get a ESU for $100, and a soundtrack is going to cost me about that. So,
yeah, if you can get into a soundtrack like an economy in the $70 range, whereas an ESU would be about $110. So on the sound decoders, there is a price difference, but boy, it is. But we're talking about like the very economical name brand sound decoders, like the Economies, Soundtrax Economies, not the Tsunami 2 or something, but the Economies are, 60, 70, 65, $70. You're talking about a not insignificant difference in price, but you're talking about a budget name brand, a budget decoder versus basically the top of the line. ESU is pretty well regarded. TCS still has some advantages when it comes to Steam at the moment. ESU's library of Steam sounds is pretty weak at the moment.
All right, Joe, we'll catch you later.
And in my case, if I go to ESU, which I intend to for Steam sounds, I'll have to custom program. I'll need a local programmer, and I'll have to custom program Steam sounds off from old tapes.
That's the other plus to the customization of the ESU. In fact, you can fully customize, and it's relatively simple to do. Just get custom sounds on it.
Yeah.
Trigger timing and stuff like that's a little difficult to figure out, but
it's not like it's hard to make it work or not work or you break it. It's just you just play with it until you get the right effect.
Yeah. Or you can find a sound file that's similar to what the way you want it to work, and then you just change the actual sounds in it. Or I know you can do that with some of the other decoders out there, but man, you're pretty much stuck with their sound files.
Yeah, well, that was one of the arguments with ESU several years ago was that people say, well, you've got to buy this programmer. That's not only are they more expensive, but you've got to buy the programmer. But you don't have to buy the programmer. You don't need the local programmer whatsoever. It's a Matt Herman for ESU, and of course he would say this, but it's actually a really good way to say this. A local programmer is you get to buy this. You don't have to buy it. You do not need it, and it will be par for par equivalent to every feature exposed on a Tsunami 2, Economy, TCS, Digitrax, whatever. But all the additional, quote unquote, hidden, but all the additional features that you can do on an ESU that are just not available to you on another decoder are exposed via the programmer. And the good thing is you can buy a decoder for $110, $120. And if your locomotive dies or you want to sell the locomotive, you can take that decoder out, put it in something else, reprogram it, modify the sounds. It's a long-term purchase. Even, Martin from down under, he has quite a few ESU 3.5s or selects, several-year-old decoders that he's going to keep right on using because he's got the things. They're not as versatile and don't have all the features the new ones, but so the lifespan of a device gets extended much more if you have the flexibility of how you use it.
Or a lot of your other manufacturers, you might be able to change the sounds to them, but you're still getting your sounds directly from them.
Well, and all you're doing with any of the sound files is changing the sound files that are programmed into the device. They're all the devices. You can choose between the sound files that were selected. Whereas with an ESU, not only does the ESU library of sounds that Matt Herman and the ESU folks have went out and mic'd up locomotives and recorded, not only are those library of sounds absolutely superb, some of the best recordings of locomotives in the industry, recorded under load, recorded under operational conditions, they're great. But you could take a video from Huron or Green Frog or something like that and break out some sound effects, which is what I'm going to have to do for some of the steam locomotives that I've got. And, assuming I continue to run steam locomotives, break those sound files out, I can make a sound file that's, considering that I like my volume fairly low on locomotive sounds anyway, I think I get entirely adequate for me out of a video.
We got... what's going on, Barry Miller? And Michael Connolly said that I've been using Digitrax for motor only, plug-in and hardwire, works well.
Yeah, they do.
Well, Digitrax does something. I've heard people argue against the purpose of having a Digitrax. The Digitrax decoder, my instinct is that Digitrax thinks of the Digitrax decoder as a reference decoder. This is the base minimum that you should have for a name brand, standard operating decoder with the mainstream features like back EMF and, some of those features. They are not bad for those features. But if a load pilot from ESU was $50, I wouldn't have an argument that would justify $50. But if it's $20 for a Digitrax, and $25 for a load pilot, and you can always go add a sound decoder onto it as a separate unit. So you can start with an ESU load pilot, you can attach a sound decoder to it, maintain the feature set. There's actually some some benefits to doing that.
Well, you
When I
can
redo
do
my
that
stand
same,
clothes, I'm gonna have 2 decoders in them.
you can do that same setup with Digitrax also. And a base decoder for Digitrax is like $15 now. They're very basic motor only decoders, like 15 to $18.
Yeah, so 15 to 18 is like 22, 23 for a local pilot. I mean, again, if you were talking about 45, $50 or something, I can't argue twice the price. But the difference in Digitrax and ESU being $5, and their motion, and again, we're not even talking about the sound features. Just the motion is pretty doggone superb on the ESU decoders. Pretty, actually they became the popular brand that they are today in Europe, Germany, in European market because of their motor control. Long before sound was the thing they were known for. They were known for superb motor.
The ESUs are a lot smoother on their motor control. Plus, you have so much more customization if you have a lock pilot on that motor control.
Yeah.
If you know you have a bad spot in a motor, you can almost eliminate it in the voltage controls and stuff on the lock pilot.
And do those cheap Digitrax decoders have the plug for capacitors or keep alives or current keepers?
Yeah.
Do they have the?
They have the power extender plug on them.
Right. Yeah, I know ESU has that plug directly on board, which that's another thing. You always have to weigh out how much effort versus how much money. Nothing at all against buying pre-made current keepers, but there's a video. I think Dave Bondar did it, but I may try to post it in our community on Facebook or something if I'll go look for it later. There's a guy on YouTube made a video of making current keepers, and they're like 75 cents worth of parts for a set of caps. So with 4 caps, a Cedar diode, a resistor or 2, I think, and you've got a current keeper.
All right, GTW 1315. I don't blame you, dude. He just jumped over to Twitch because YouTube is blurred pretty bad on my end. But anyway, let's see. Yeah, Robert said that I've got 2 with sound and the rest will be motor only. Dwight, his comment is, I have always heard from most people ESU has a better motor control, especially when you use pastel powders. Oh, hey, Ralph, I didn't see you come in. Ralph's going to ignore me.
They are. Their ESUs are superb. And like I said, if it's only a couple dollars difference, you're getting what is widely regarded as the absolute best decoder on the market, even though you're excluding sound from it. To Robert's point, Joe Fugate, years ago, partly because of economics, partly because of sound volume, he was running, and I'm trying to remember exactly what he was doing, but I think he was running, like 3 unit consists, and he would run 2 without sound, 1 locomotive with sound, give you all the sound that you would like. Now, I don't think you get some of the cool factors of motors or prime movers that are ramping up and down kind of against each other, but most sound decoders like Tsunamis don't give you that anyway. They give you a very consistent speed table. The ESUs do, but what you can do is run a sound profile that has a stereo sound effect, like an E8 locomotive that you can run 2 prime movers.
Yeah,
There's 2 issues. When you have 2 or 3 locomotives in a consist, it sounds absolutely great if you can run them all with sound, especially if you can put their notching just a little bit slightly off.
Yeah.
Okay? The other problem is when you run all sound, your whole train room becomes white noise.
The volume is key. Like I have mine at and that's the QSI or whoever makes the decoder for BLI for Broadway Limited. I set my sound at 15% stock volume. That's perfect for me. I can hear it distinctly at 5 feet or 6, 7 feet away, exactly what I want. and it starts to fall off pretty precipitously as you get 10 or 12 feet away, or if there's other noise in the room. So I like that volume quite low.
Yeah, Adrian, he says I'm using sound only on the main locos, others single GPs, etc., and consist motor only. And Robert, too much extra noise can be very obnoxious.
It is the distinction is quantity versus quality or nuance. I turned the volumes down, like I said, turned the volume down considerably. And if I had 3 locomotive consists, I'd probably turn the volume down to something like 10% stock volume, depending on speaker arrangements. But like Ralph pointed out, something you get with multi locomotive consists is that they ramp up and down at different times. They will alternate their compressors and other features, and you'll get a lot of more distinct sound nuances in there with multiple locomotives. I think you could bring some of that back with creatively using ESU's custom sound profiles, but you're never going to get back to the same as having 3 sound decoders.
Especially if you're running Alcos.
Oh man, I love
Alcos are a sound unto themselves.
Yeah, man.
And the EMD stuff and the GE, it becomes all monotone at one point. You can hear it, but it's just not right. Something's not right about it. Like Robert is so set against having multiple units. Try it first before you knock it, buddy.
Yeah, out there at the store, we've had a bunch of them. We've had a refrigerator car that's got the sound in it.
Yep.
Oh man, just that thing sitting there drives me nuts. I finally just walk over, take it off the track. Yeah.
Right.
Actually, I'd pick it out and just move it just enough to where the wheels are still sitting on the tires.
Yeah.
And then Brian come walking down through there, and he kind of glances over. He said, "Wonder why that thing quit. Did you turn the sound off?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "How'd you do that?" I said, "I took it off the track."
Derailed it.
Yeah, he said, "Well, it looked like it's still on there." I said, "No, it's just sitting beside it."
But most of them used a little sound wad, used a little magnetic wad to trigger a reed switch or a field effect, field effect sensor to turn them on and off. That's pretty slick. The noise, I think noise is an absolute great scenic element on a layout, whether that's locomotive sound effects or the sound of a gargling creek or bubbling creek. I love the ambience of sounds, but it has to be subtle. Miles done something fairly interesting not too long ago by using PIR sensors or motion sensors. I don't remember which he used. So that once you walk down an aisle, and he put the sensor fairly far away from the sound effect, so you can trip the sensor, and then as you walk into the scene, that sound effect is coming in and playing. But then as you walk away, it dies down because, if we had layouts that were in huge rooms, and maybe with the peninsulas that had sound deadening between them, you could do you wouldn't be as constrained. But if you get a lot of crazy sound effects in most of our relatively small train rooms, it becomes like Ralph said, man. It's gonna. I think it would send me to a padded room if I just had to sit and listen to it, which I probably belong there anyway. But
well, that's about what Adrian's saying. He said, doing all sound in consist makes other locos running on your layout have a drowned out effect. Doing a separate consist on your layout with one sound loco apiece will achieve a better realism.
It does if you leave the stock volume, but if you'll turn the volume down, just into MRI, one setting, into MRI, master volume level, set it to 20%, or like I said, I like mine at about 15% volume. But then if you have the multiple decoders all set at 15%, you don't get the sound pollution effectively that you're getting that will kill you, but you are getting the nuance of the locomotives that are kind of had different sound effects. And something that I think ESU done that was truly exceptional, and especially pays off with Alcos because every Alco locomotive was so different, nuanced, is they don't just have one RS3 sound with with a 16-cylinder RS3. They have
Wow.
Yeah. Another quarter, Andy.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Barry Miller is
Yeah.
saying he just started integrating Digitrax DCC into his system. How do you feel about stationary decoders? It all depends on how you want to operate. The stationary decoder is you're gonna use it to turn lights on and off. You're gonna use it to control your turnouts. If you want to operate or use your layout and operate it, then you may want to leave the turnouts to the train crew to flip the turnouts. Just a thought. If you're operating just for yourself, by all means. The thing that they started coming out with, Tim, what was that thing that, oh, is it Athearn that's coming out with the rail system where, is it not Blu-ray?
Walther's got one, and then Athearn, I think, coming in.
And basically what it's doing, see, if you're going to use, well, I don't think Atlas was in on this. If you're going to use your DCC system to power everything, then you may have, depending on the size of your layout, may have to get a different booster, increase it. If you separate your turnouts and building lighting from the track operation, you may be able to get away without doing that, as you can power your turnouts from just a little wall wart, and the same with your building lighting. Instead of using your DCC system, because the more you add onto it, the more power it takes, and it reduces your system amps.
Yeah, before I forget and get interrupted again, Ralph, that steam locomotive, I was wrong about the box, of course. That is a Bachmann Spectrum that I have a drawbar issue with.
Do you need to make a drawbar for it? Because I used to make them years ago working at the hobby shop.
Yeah, because what it is, this thing, I can't remember, I haven't looked at it in so long, but I think it had a screw on the locomotive end that held the drawbar in place.
Yep.
And then the tender just sat down over it. Well, the drawbar, is too low. And I have to add a little longer drawbar, so I do a Z-bend to where it'll come up on the pin on the tender, so it'll stay hooked up.
Yeah, I had a little template that I used to use, and I would, I'd stamp it out of a piece of fiber, some kind of fibrous board we used. I'd stamp it out, and then I could slide it down, and I could set the drawbar to whatever length I wanted, and then bend it. Because a lot of times problems people had, especially when I worked at the hobby shop, you had a lot of people building, small 4x8 layouts, sharp curves, 18-inch radius curves, and I would build extended drawbars and solve people's problems, a lot of problems.
Yeah, I got the thing several years ago, and I was on the Piedmont pilgrimage and volunteering. I took it with me to a guy's layout and put it on there, and it didn't go but about maybe 2 feet. It disconnected. It wouldn't stay hooked up, so I just stuck it back in the box.
That's like we've talked about before. When it comes layout design, for example, it is so critical to know what you're trying to accomplish, because a layout design for steam locomotives will be quite different than a layout design for diesel locomotives. Unless you just have a whole lot of space. I mean, if you have a lot of space and 36-inch or 48-inch radius curves, it doesn't matter what you run; everything will run fine on it. But if you're going to build a layout in a confined space, or a constrained space, steam locomotives have very different considerations.
Andy, we were talking about Barry Miller was saying he's integrated his system into Digitrax DCC,
I was curious if anybody
uh,
commented on that.
and he's considering stationary decoders. We've talked about this before about separating decoders from your main operating system,
Yes.
and you can still do that with. He's talking about he wants to use train control on the mains and eventually JMRI, and that can be done separate of the locomotive.
Absolutely. So, and that's part of the movement in the hobby at large. Everybody's had this problem for a long time. Digitrax have solved this problem 20 years ago. They realized this was going to be a problem, and I'm not necessarily a Digitrax fan per se. I think they have, if you want an end-to-end solution from one company, Digitrax is virtually the only U.S. focused DCC provider that has a complete solution. Signal control and detection and switch control. You name it. They have a complete end-to-end solution. NCE is close, but you kind of have to manipulate it a bit. And there's some European companies, Edenbrock, and something like that has a complete solution.
Also, Digitrax is one of the few or the only one that's not a Mother May I. It checks all the hardware one time and that's it until it gets a signal from a piece of hardware.
Well, it has bi-directional communication. See, they solved the problem, Ben, that I think DCC, the guys who originally designed DCC, in their infinite wisdom, it has had legs on it. DCC was the standard that the NMRA ratified for that came out and was ratified before we had sound on locomotives, let alone all these accessories and light controls and all that. DCC has an unbelievable amount of room in the code. The CVs are 256 CVs with 256 depth. So 256 by 256 available set of options. It's unbelievable what you can do with CVs and with the programming of DCC for locomotion, for controlling a locomotive. I don't at all think that DCC is personally, a good solution for controlling accessories and fixed features from lighting to turnouts to detection. Now, like
hang on one second. I want to answer Robert real quick. If you want a flat spot of wheel, Robert, just use a file the wheel. Just file a small flat spot on there.
Yes, but you're not going to get the sound that you're wanting. The problem is you can't scale down. Professor Kosler from Australia talks about this, especially with regard to what we were talking about a few minutes ago about sound. He talks about scale sound that has been proportionally shrunk down, lowering the volumes and affecting the sound to make sure it's scale appropriate. You would hear a locomotive 30 miles away, so you should pull your sound down. I've tried this as well. Like I wanted that clack, clack, clack sound effect of 39-foot rail segments. That's not possible to do with gravity that's still 1-to-1 with equipment that's 1-to-87 and with equipment that's weighted the way our equipment is. If our cars were appropriately weighted, if you took a 70-ton car and shrunk that 187 scale, so your car was effectively still a ton or something, you could get those effects. But it's not possible. I think the only way to do that is to use speakers and sound assessor decoders.
The problem that comes in, like you said, you can't scale it. How big do you make that flat spot? That's where the scaling comes in.
Well, it just won't be the same effect.
It won't.
No, I mean, speakers, you just can't upsize and downsize speakers because they have different frequency responses. So when you put a flat spot on that wheel, you're going to get this real tinny kind of effect. You're not going to get that deep, bassy kind of cluck effect. The only way to get that is to use speakers. For the wheel clacks, I bought little bitty speakers. I got boxes of these things. I got 750 of these. And I've got like 50 2.5-inch Mylar driver little speakers. And my intention was to put these every 1.5 foot under the track. if I was an N-scaler, I would do all my sound under track sound effects, every bit of it. I would not even try to deal with speakers and locomotives other than what comes from the factory. I would just do that under track. But for wheel squeal and wheel clack, these speakers are dirt cheap.
But by putting the flat spot in wheel, the most you're going to get is maybe a click sound.
Yeah, click. Yeah.
And if you get it too big, it's gonna actually literally just drag the wheel. If you don't have the freedom of movement and weight and everything for that wheel to roll like a real wheel would with it having a flat spot.
Doesn't have the momentum.
Kinetic energy won't just keep that car moving. The forces are just not the same forces. Let me briefly finish up on that DCC debate. What Digitrax did in their infinite wisdom was come out with LocoNet, where they have fully separated and segmented to an entirely different bus using somewhat of a different protocol, all the fixed accessory controls. A lot of other people are doing the same thing. That's where the movement with LCC is coming from. I think LCC is a little too late to be meaningful, but it may pick up. A guy turned me on to some of these. I was going to do some of these same things anyway, but Gert Muller, who comes on here, some speed, a fellow that Ralph knows as well, I met down in Texas. He's using these little boards. These are like $2 a piece. This is a 16-channel servo board. That's about $3, so $5 to control 16 servos. Now, granted, you need to be a little bit tech savvy to fool with this stuff, but you don't have to write code. The code's available. You can just download the code. If you're tech savvy enough to download the code, use a little USB adapter that this thing plugs straight into to write the code straight to a USB like a thumb drive. Write the code. This is Wi-Fi, by the way. So, and I personally love Wi-Fi for accessory control. I don't have all that wire under the layout. I have 4 wires run under my layout. 2 for track power, 2 for accessory, DC accessory voltage. That's it. Because Wi-Fi is, now most people's experience with Wi-Fi is not that good because they're using the Wi-Fi that's built into their Time Warner or AT&T or Comcast modem. That's not very good. But you could build, quote unquote enterprise class Wi-Fi up spectacularly cheap these days.
He has DCC from Digitrax.
Yeah.
They've just come out with a Wi-Fi unit. And you don't need anything else. You can connect directly with your cell phone to that unit.
Just for throttles. Yeah, just for throttles. But don't get me wrong, that's awesome. I think that's great that they're supporting Y-throttle and engine driver, the JMRI throttle. They're emulating JMRI's throttle capability to do that. You can do the same thing on a DCC++, for example. You can take an Arduino board, connect it to a network or connect it to Wi-Fi or a Raspberry Pi, rather, connect it to, you can do it, well, you don't need a Raspberry Pi, you can do it directly on the Digitrax. But you can buy wireless access points. This is a company called Ubiquity. I got like 3 or 4 of these at the house here. They're $60 and just wireless, and these things are just spectacularly robust. So you can build out a wireless infrastructure to run your railroad on that will be as reliable, possibly even more reliable, because simple is better sometimes. Wireless can be simple and sometimes can be more reliable if you buy the right hardware.
So that Ubiquity connects to your modem?
Yes, yeah. In my case, I have I've got several. I've got 3 of them here in the house. It's just that I don't like. I've never seen a wireless router, that quote unquote wireless router, that I love, because those are 2 very different purposes. I have a dedicated modem that is just a dumb modem, and I have a dedicated router that is just a router, no wireless. And then I have wireless access points. One, because I want to be able to upgrade them at will, but you also just get much better devices than a standalone, I've got, some of the best stuff around. That's Asus Black Widow. I don't use this junk. I just scavenged this on something. This is a brand new $300 router. I wouldn't use this for nothing. big old stupid clunky thing. And this is $300, and my $60 wireless access point, and less than $100 dedicated router, much better solution. And you could buy a little router like that. That's a Ubiquiti Edge Router X, no wireless, just a wired internet router. These are $45, $50. You can buy those wireless access points. You can buy those wireless access points for $60, and that's the light version. That's what I use for my household wireless. For the house, I use the light ones, the little cheaper ones. For the railroad, I have this little bit larger, higher end one. This is just for the railroad, and this is an Ubiquiti Pro. So it's the highest end of the access points they have. It's still just $100. But these are designed for the Pro is designed for college campuses. So up to 500 users. So in my case, with all those little devices, control the turnouts and all that stuff, I'm going to have a lot of clients. So I bought a pretty high-end access point dedicated to the railroad, and then I've got 3 of these to put out. Well, the others are out in the house. I need to have these on the cellar and this one on the cellar in the railroad room, but they're good and cheap.
Robert's still going on about the flat spot on the wheel. There's 2 issues. There's 2 other issues that come out with that. Like, some people do not change their wheels out for metal wheels, and if you're one of the ones that change out your wheels to metal, then the click that you want to get, you're not going to hear, because the metal wheels are going to be making a lot of noise.
You didn't just try it. Another argument about that is our model railroad wheels are just not at all shaped and don't function the same way. Prototype wheels have a slope to them, and what you have is this kind of effect where the train has these 2 slopes, and it's kind of setting in this V, kind of rocking back and forth. That's why prototype railroad equipment kind of rocks back and forth in a smooth way, where our equipment kind of rattles back and forth, because we have these flat surface wheels, and we depend on flanges. If your flange is hitting the rail of the prototype, you're going to wear the rail out quick. But on our models, they do that all the time. The physics are really different. But try it. For all the talk and theory in the world, there is a spectacular amount of value in just taking a file and giving it a shot.
Experiment.
That's right. I'm totally interested, because I love that so much that I bought these 700 speakers to get the wheel clack sounds and river sound effects and the dogs barking and birds chirping and all that crap. Speaking of that too, and comparing it to JMRI has a bunch of features, operations and other things that we don't talk about. Most people talk about Decoder Pro and Panel Pro. The other, third, independent program they have is the JMRI Sound Manager. And I have never found a good video on it. I've never even found a good write-up on it. Even on the JMRI website, there's 2 paragraphs that talk about that thing, the Virtual Sound Manager. It is spectacular. You could put in a whole stupid amount of speakers. By the way, to do sound, I'm also doing that wirelessly. I've got a bunch of these 2.5-inch Mylars, and then I've got, Bluetooth receivers. I've got about 50 of these Bluetooth receivers that gives me a stereo output, so 100 speakers all over Bluetooth. I can pair those to one computer that's running JMRI or Raspberry Pi running JMRI, and in JMRI, I can attach 50 stereo outputs or 100 sound outputs in JMRI, and JMRI can take into account where you are and bring the volumes up and down on different speakers as you move around in your aisles, and it's amazing what you can do with it.
Back on the tread deal, higher. My problem with that is, in the real world, we have to have a plate on the wheel. You have a flat spot on one side of one of the wheels. The other side of that wheel probably does not have a flat spot on it. So all that weight is still pressing down and it's still rolling that wheel around. In HO scale or N scale or O scale, we don't have that kind of weight to force that wheel to go ahead and roll even with that flat spot. So if you flat spot that wheel, it's probably just going to slide.
It sure could. It'd have to be a subtle effect, just a few strokes for the file.
If you're going to experiment, make yourself up a long train, use a locomotive that does not have sound in it, and put that experimental car at the end so that you can hear it by itself and see what it does.
And record it, because I'm fascinated if we could find ways to make that work. I think you would get better results by buying a soundtrack sound card and turning that sound effect on in that sound card. I could not use sound cards because the vast amount of my rolling stock is coal hoppers. Many of those being run empty, so I couldn't hide sound cards in the contests.
Well, I think what you're going to wind up running into is it's going to be more of a sound effect like when you cut into your rail, get that click. The rail joints.
Yeah, that just doesn't sound convincing to me. Kid Patterson did that on a show maybe a couple of years ago. Took a dribble and tore his rail up every few inches. And it not only does it sound artificial, it does not sound like the effect that the prototype makes. I think a recording. That's right. And I think if you used you can buy these little MP3 players that hook to Arduino, or just these little standalone MP3 players that you could fire with an accessory decoder, or any way that you can trigger them. It'd be pretty easy to have that sound effect stuck under the rails or put in a freight car.
Yeah, Adrian's got on here, put solder on the wheel. Not much. You can follow the solder and experiment with the outcome. The problem with that is now you're putting a hump in the wheel and causing the car to bounce.
Yeah, you're still going to get probably the same effect. And another thing is it's spectacularly hard to solder to the stainless steel wheel sets. That's a way to try it though, and see if you like the effect. Put a dot of super glue on it. See if that. I think it would probably be pretty close. It's going to be a clicking effect.
If you drag that off enough, it would just sit there and it'd be an oval-shaped wheel. By the time you grind it off enough to actually roll, it probably just an oval-shaped wheel. You just see the car rolling up and down.
That's what I'm talking about. You'll get a lot of shaking on your car.
Yeah, you're going to get that no matter what. If it's a large enough flat spot or solder or super glue or whatever that you can hear it, that you can hear that sound effect amplified, it's going to have some effect on rollability. That's one of the big benefits to massively overweighted cars like Mike Cufflow, Joe Fugate, and others are doing these days that I subscribe to, is you can do some of those things and get better effects because, if your cars weigh 12 or 13 ounces a piece, you could get away with a little more, but I'm still not sure that you would hear it or that it would be a desirable sound.
You also got to think that most of our freight trucks underneath our cars are solid mount. They don't have suspension to them. Under real world, under 1-to-1 scale, they have a suspension on that truck. So that truck's absorbing that bounce, that flat spot on that wheel. So the whole car's not transmitting that. It transmits sound, but it's not transmitting that vibration.
And that is so challenging.
All right, Barry, have a good one.
Yeah, see, Barry. That obviously that's a really challenging thing to kind of deal with.
A lot of it will go back to this, the gravity 1-to-1, and we're at 1/87 on our weights.
Well, that's why. Well, and you can't do 1/87th. A 70-ton coal hopper at 1/87th scale would still be. Your 70-ton coal hopper would weigh 1,600 pounds or something like that. So
no, maybe
70
7
ton.
pounds for one car.
70 ton divided by 87 is a little shy of a ton. So spectacularly heavy. The thing we don't take into account, though, is 1/87th is a linear proportion. Like if you want to say how wide a building should be, the proper way to scale that down is 187. We don't consider that in scale is not, and it's not exactly the case anyway, because 187 versus 160, it's not. In scale is not half the size of HO scale, or HO scale is not half the size of O scale. It's a quarter. Because what we care about is not the linear dimension of a two-dimensional, two-dimensional line, or a one-dimensional line. What we care about is the mass of something, the three-dimensional effect. So an N-scale locomotive is 4 times smaller than an HO scale locomotive in its entirety in its mass situation.
Well, I think
So
Brian has kind of hit on it here. He said, I think it would be hard to reproduce the flat spot sound because in the real world, that sound you hear is resonating from the metal trucks, rail, fish plates, and spikes, etc.
That's kind of what I was saying is, the sound resonates, but the motion doesn't. So.
Uh-oh, Andy's run out of quarters again. All right, let's shut it down real quick. All right, well, I'll tell you what. Tonight's the last night of the month. So next week on Wednesday, we've got the Who's Big Bill talking to, and he's going to have John 2618 on the show. That's going to be interesting. Then, I was looking at the calendar tonight, so I wish Andy would pop back in here real quick. November the 12th is the Bill show.
Mm-hmm.
That's also a full moon, so we need to watch, see if Andy howls.
Oh, wow.
Then we got Joe's show on the 20th.
When's the locomotive show?
Huh?
When's, what's his name's locomotive show?
Oh, Joe?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's on the 20th.
Okay.
He's always the third Wednesday of the month. We're going to have to change it. We got to change December because his wife's having a baby.
Right on.
Now Robert gets it because besides all that clicky clack sound, it's getting more and more a thing of the past with continuous welded rail.
That's right.
And just to remind everybody, we are simultaneous streaming, and so far Twitch has had the best video and audio because Ari switched over during the show. I would imagine you can pop the chat out of YouTube and put it over in a new tab with Twitch, so you can.
What I do.
Huh?
That's what I do.
Yeah. Okay. So that way you can still keep up with the YouTube chat. Alrighty, so I guess we'll see everybody on November the 6th for Who's Big Bill talking to.
Yeah.
Yeah, Robert just says, screw it. I'm going no sound at all on my layout. I'm going to solder all the track together. Just joking.
Yeah,
Um,
I can just see it now. I was like that too. I didn't want the sound initially. But once I got one sound locomotive, I thought, this is not that bad. Then I got another, and another, and another.
well, what's nice is when you can actually shut them off without having. They don't actually fire up and fire up. Have them set to where they don't fire up when you turn your layout on.
Exactly. You have them on a
Well,
switchable track.
that gives relatively good morning. Uh, and that's another reason why I kind of like the ESUs is they kind of restore to the last state they were in. So if you left it in the shut down position when you turn your layout back on, it stays shut down. It don't fire the sound back up.
Sometimes.
Yeah, sometimes. Most generally they do. But there is occasionally they will fire back up.
Yep.
Or if you shut them down, they have a tendency to start playing. If you have them on and have them running, and go to the shutdown sequence, they have a tendency to still sit there and play the random sounds. Where if you never acquired the locomotive and ran it, they never play the sounds. They sit there and they just run silent the whole time. If you don't turn the sounds on.
I have one Intermountain locomotive that has sound, and it's a SD40-2. And when I close down, I usually turn the sound off. So I also have Digitrack. So when I select my locomotives, it may not be in the list here, or I may not have it on screen, and it starts up. And in order to shut it down again, all I have to do is acquire the locomotive, bring it up on the controller, and as soon as it comes up,
Shut down.
it realizes I'm supposed to be quiet, and it shuts off.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, we hit an hour 8, so. And I've had a few very long days. So y'all have a good weekend. And we shall see you on November the 6th.
All right.
All righty.
So y'all have a good one.